Hey, hey, beautiful people. It is January the 17th, 2015 at 10:23 in the morning. What an incredibly beautiful day we have here at part of Turtle Island. There have not been many like this at all ever since I've been here. I got here on 10/23. The funny part about it is that was exactly 16 years to the day that my father passed. It was my father who passed me and my brother this property that has become the heart of Turtle Island. And ever since I arrived in October, just a few days afterwards, we had an Arctic vortex hit. And man, did it get cold. There's only been 3 days with sunshine here until yesterday, and yesterday was a very unusual day. It was a day where James Brown really felt the need to come up here and to be on the land, and I felt the need to really do some focus on what we're going to do next. On Monday, we've actually got a couple of shipping containers coming in here so we can put our tools into and set up some 3D printers and have a place to work out of here, a shop here on the land. Anyway, for 3 months now, there's only been 3 days where we had sunshine. Only 3 days where I could literally wear a t-shirt. And it has been one most incredible cold winter here with this Arctic vortex going over. And the frequencies when I got here into the Memphis area were so freaking low, and I couldn't understand why they were so low here. You know, any place that we have aquifers, and there's a major aquifer under here, some fantastic water. Those aquifers, as the minerals are flowing through the water there, they deposit and create giant crystals. The crystal caves in Chihuahua, Mexico is a good example of that. You know, sometimes these aquifers are hundreds of feet, if not thousands of feet under the ground. And those crystals, when we have solar flares or cosmic rays, they should be powering up. Those crystals should be creating vortexes in the area. But for some reason, here in the Memphis area, there were no obvious vortexes I could find. And so, Sandra Walter, this is a video for you. Thank you so very much. You and Patricia Diane COTES ROBLES. But the crystals that you sent, Sandra, I did not open that box. It was funny because that box went to the Gulf Coast, and then my family came up here to the Memphis area Thanksgiving without bringing that box. And so I thought I was going to be doing ceremony a lot earlier than yesterday, and it just so happened to work out yesterday. And now that I look back, and yesterday being January the 16th, now that I look back, I understand exactly why. Mom, I said the day that I got here on October 23rd, my father had passed 16 years to the day before I got here. And he passed because of complications of a 5-point bypass, heart surgery. This is the heart of Turtle Island. In general, around the Americas, this is the heart center of Turtle Island. That's how my family farm got its name, or why I named it Heart of Turtle Island, because this is in that area, and I teach heart chakra activation. Anyway, Yesterday, on January the 16th, that was exactly 17 years to the day that my father had his open heart surgery. I'm trying to sit down and I'm right in the middle of a bunch of sumac. And this is poison sumac. But all the poison has gone down with the sap into the ground, into the roots of the sumac, so you can sit in it right down. It doesn't bother you. Yesterday was 17 years to the day that that my father had his open heart surgery, and then took him 10.5 months to pass before then. That he never left the hospital except for about a week there. And I had premonitions that there would be problems before he had the surgery, and I asked him not to. And then anyway, the morning he passed, December 23rd, I happened to be in Jackson, Mississippi, 200 miles south of here, and he was in St. Francis Hospital here in Memphis. And that morning I had a dream that he was back here on this piece of property, and my brother and I came in to visit him, and he was in a recliner chair as we walked in, and he said, "Welcome, boys, good to see you," like he used to do. And he asked us if we wanted something to drink, and we said yeah. And then he got up and he walked to the kitchen to fix us something. And I'd already seen him at the hospital for 10 months, and part of my dream was that he had the surgery. Well, and that during the surgery there were the complications, what actually happened. Well, that morning before sunrise, I had this dream of coming up here with my brother, and that my father had gotten up to fix us something to eat and drink. And we looked to him and said, "Well, Dad, you were injured. You couldn't walk just a few days before when we saw you." And he said, "I'm better. I'm all right now. It's all over. It's all over." And right then the telephone rang, and it was St. Francis Hospital telling me that my father had just passed. I ended up having to fight for his body with my family, because in my immediate family we build the box, dig the hole, go get the body, get the permits, prepare the body, put it in the box, and we lower it into the grave and we cover it back up. Now, the other side of my family was more of a pretend religious, and they fought me in court for 11 days. I couldn't get my father's body. And then when my brother and I finally won custody over the body here in Memphis, we went back to the hotel that we were staying at. And this is like 1st of November, November 2nd or so. And anyway, there was a big boom, 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 boom right outside our window once we got to our hotel room in Germantown. And we opened the curtains, and there was this big fireworks show that was going on right outside the window of the hotel we were staying at. That was very strange because there was no holiday. It was in the middle of the week, and then there's this big fireworks display there. And then when we finally placed him into the ground and finished covering the grave, there was this jet that was just streaming off into the sunset. And a lot of supernatural phenomena, like doorbells ringing or telephones ringing, or all different types of static going, or the smell of popcorn in the air at my home in Jackson, which had been going on from the time that he passed until the time that we got him in the ground. All of that supernatural phenomena stopped as soon as we got him in the ground and got him covered up. It was a most bizarre thing. Anyway, that the date of his 5-point bypass that caused his demise was exactly yesterday, 17 years ago. 17, a prime number. But even more so than that, there's even a much greater, or as great, of something that happened to me. I got to find my cursor here. A lot of times if I let this thing go to sleep while I'm doing a video, it messes with the video. Anyway, I had even mentioned in my last video how January 11th, 1991, there was an energy wave that was coming through that began the energies of the 1111 doorway coming in, and it wasn't until January 11th, 1992 that we actually did ceremony that opened the 1111 doorway. During those first months, 6 months, I was receiving the messages about the gathering that we were getting ready to have, but there was nobody else who was receiving the same messages I could talk to. And then I had to leave Jackson, Mississippi, where I was, and drive down to Ocean Springs, where I met my mother, and I told her the same story again, that the 144,000 were getting ready to gather, and that I was of Archangel Michael's legions. We're here to change the planet. That there's still a light-dark battle going on at that time. It was both within myself as well as, you know, the powers that be in the world. And really, that kept on going, and it's still going on today, but not just so much. We've pretty much shifted everything now. It's just a matter of everything just playing out. But that information started rolling in January 11th, 1991. Something happened on January 16th, 1991. It was the invasion of Iraq for Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait, because George Herbert Walker Bush, who's part of the 666, and that's funny because even the 666 right there has to do with this story, because PATRICIA, COTES, ROBLES, just did a water healing ceremony, gathering waters from throughout the planet, and was mentioning in her pamphlet that was included in a box of crystals that Sandra Walter, thank you Sandra, had just sent me, and it was talking about the 666, the 999, the 121212, and what all that means. And this is directly related to the ceremony here yesterday, because after ceremony, it dawned on me, and it was not a planned event, that yesterday was not only 17 years exactly to the day that my father had the operation that caused his demise, that led to my brother and I getting this piece of property called the Heart of Turtle Island, but it was also 24 years exactly to the date of the planned invasion, the dark ceremonies of the invasion of Iraq, called the First Persian Gulf War. And that was a wake-up call. That when Peter Arnett was in Baghdad, and he had the night vision goggles pointed out over the desert, or over the area of Baghdad that he was in at the hotel, and those night vision goggles were showing everything green, and there was this giant mushroom-shaped water tank in the back with the anti-aircraft fire, the guns, the tracer bullets that were trying to shoot down the American planes, the stealth bombers that were going on right then. That was a deja vu for me. Major deja vu. And I found since it was a major deja vu for a lot of us. It was a memory, a wake-up call, a pre-programming, an encoding that was locked into our DNA for a trigger to set us off that would later become that gathering of the opening of the 1111 doorway in the end times. That event really was, that's what Isaiah 13 and Isaiah 14 in the Old Testament is all about, is the First and Second Persian Gulf War. Those are the only two books that are replicated exactly, word for word, letter for letter, in any other holy book I've ever seen. Mostly holy books do not share various books and verses, but Isaiah 13 and 14 is found in the Book of Mormon as the beginning of the end times. That was a pre-programmed memory. I saw it. It was a deja vu. It hit me to the core of my being when I saw that. And it started opening up my visions and understanding. Well, that January 16th, 1991 was 24 years ago to the day of yesterday when we did the ceremony here at Turtle Island to generate the vortex, to raise the frequencies of this area of the planet, of the heart of Turtle Island, the heart of the Americas, the heart of Dixie. 24 years ago to the date. Now, what is 24? 24 is 8 cubed. So, as I'm sitting here doing ceremony, and I'm reading out loud what PATRICIA COTES ROBLES had sent with the healing waters that you sent me, Sandra, I'm reading about the 666, and right then it's dawning on me that it's also the 888, and that 17 years ago, the prime number of my father's heart surgery was 1 and 7, which is also an 8. And as I'm reading Patricia's message, and I'm reading about the 666, knowing that was the 888, she's talking about the 999. And of course, many of us knew the trigger of the 11-11-11 and 12-12-12. I was like, wow! That was before Thanksgiving that you sent that package of crystals, Sandra. And it did not work out to do ceremony until yesterday, the first blue sky day, and there's the hawk. I don't believe it. You see that hawk up there flying? Now this had to do with yesterday also. As James Brown and I, before we got here to do ceremony, we went to the Tipton County building department and the code inspector to talk about permits for the connexes that we're bringing in here. And as we're driving there, he's asking me about ceremony and about moving energy. And James Brown is a Creek Indian. I'm a Cherokee Indian. I'm a card-carrying Cherokee. He's a card-carrying Creek. And it was the Creeks that helped the Cherokees out on the Trail of Tears, which the Trail of Tears came by here, literally a half a mile from his house in Bartlett down Stage Road here in Memphis. And as he's asking me about ceremony, I say we do this to move the energies, to bring energy into matter manifestation, to shift the planet. And right then, right as I said that, we both saw this hawk jump off the ground onto a wire looking dead at us as we're driving by this fence line in the back woods here, going to Covington to talk to the permit inspector. And I said, there's your sign right there. Well, yesterday at 12 o'clock noon, we started this ceremony on January 16th, 2015. And right as I started doing the ceremony at the front end of the property, there was a hawk flying, 12 o'clock high, right above me, which was my sign for ceremony. And there's the hawk again here as I'm making the video. Okay. So there's always magic. And It's magic that I'm sitting here in all this sumac too, which is the poison, the old crap that's got to go, even here on the farm. Well, the crystals told us yesterday that it was time to open the box. James asked me about it, Sandra. And I pulled out the box and I felt it was time right then. And as soon as we opened the box and I started reading your letter and feeling the energies and the power of the crystals, we knew it was time to do ceremony right then. And that was before noon. And so all of this unfolded right at that particular time. And as I was reading about how to place, how you had written about the placement of the crystals, I realized that this first ceremony was going to be to use the crystals to begin the energy, but not have them in a permanent position. And I was told to go to the highest point of this land, and I was told that this is where the ceremony would be done. And as I came up here, and this is where I want to build my residence in the future, whenever all of this really starts developing. I want to build it under that ancient pecan. It's way back in the back right there. In fact, there was a roadhouse there. The funny part about this, and I found out about this in Thanksgiving from a guy who lived in a shack right where my tent is over here, and now I'm in a camper. Thank you, James. That's about 20 degrees warmer at night than being out in the tent. And thanks, Sandra, for the sleeping bag cover. That really was a good neck warmer last night and kept me warm. That was quite wonderful. I found that in 1962, the year that I was born, that there was a doctor who owned this property at that time, and the guy who had lived here, he had since he had moved before then. Somebody else, the doctor, had bought the property, and the doctor was a gambler. So was my father. The reason why there is one road on the dam coming in here, which kind of landlocks this place, and was a problem for me for so many years before, but now that we're trying to do we are doing an eco village, and we're not wanting to have vehicles coming back in here. We don't really want to subdivide the property. It's turned out that the single lane dam, which we couldn't subdivide the property without turning it into a 2-lane dam, but it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. It's turned out to be the most wonderful, incredible thing. But the reason why that was a 1-lane dam was because right back here, in right where that ancient pecan is back there, I don't know if you can see it, but it's right over there. But under that pecan was a roadhouse, a gambling house, a place where ladies of the evening could be accessed. And the 1-lane dam, the lake was created and had a 1-lane dam put on it to keep the sheriff out, so it can all be barricaded. What a hoot. There are no other roads coming into here, and if you knew half of my earlier years in this existence, you'd understand what a real hoot that is. Oh man. So anyway, I was guided to come to the highest point here and to do ceremony, where the medicine wheel here. There he is. He's commented on doing ceremony. I look back at that New Year's video when I'm out there with the pelicans, and I was slapping my hand on the board of the pier where I was, and a brown pelican, I was talking about the white pelicans, But a brown pelican was sitting there talking to me, and he was slapping the water, and he's going, you know, you're talking about all these white pelicans that fly north and how beautiful they are and how much you like them, and it's the brown pelican which landed behind me in the video, and then he takes off, and I'm saying he's walking on water, and then he goes over to the other side and catches the fish, and he's slapping the water as I'm slapping in response to me slapping the pier as I'm telling my story. And there was so much magic going on right there in the video that, you know, if you don't pay attention, I missed until I rewatched the video. And it's just like the hawk right there when I'm talking about doing ceremony with James and why we do ceremony, and there's the hawk that jumps up the fence, and then right as I started clearing the energies at the front end of that one lane dam where the entrance to this property is, there's the hawk 12 o'clock high, I mean perfectly dead overhead right as I started. And then we come up here and we do the laying of the crystals and the water healing, Sandra. And here are the crystals right there. That's the placement of them. And interestingly enough, just like at the fall equinox of 2011, and I'd been working to crack the energy barriers, the energy domes that were above Hopi land that kept those vortexes from activating. And I worked on that with Kim Bright for even a year before that. It began at the 9th gate activation of the 1111 doorway, and then that was the 10th gate activation. And we did ceremony at the for the 9th gate at the tribal council office, those that the Washington put in and says is the government of the Hopi, when that's not the real elders and who the real Hopi, the traditional elders want to have controlling their government. The tribal council is like a puppet dictatorship from Washington, and many people know how that works. But we did 9th gate activation there at the hotel at the cultural center, and I couldn't understand why it was like an old Harley. You could feel the energies trying to kick in, but then it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't fire up and run. And it took, and that was October of 2010. We began that, and it was at Titus Farm. I was living at Titus Farm and had been doing ceremonies for some time before, but it was at the Sundance. I'd spoken to several of the elders about what they were seeing and why the vortexes in Hopi land would not activate. And every time they would go to the kivas and come out with their visions, they said that there were domes, energetic domes that were placed over Hopi land that kept the energy from flowing from negative ground, the magma in Mother Earth, through all the volcanic flumes that are littered around Hopi land, through all the mineral deposits that are littered around, and going out to the positive ether of space. That is the conduit. That's the circuit for vortexes, just like our chakras in this physical body are our personal electromagnetic circuit within this body. Well, vortexes are kind of like how chakras, individual chakras, work within the planet. And when the elders would come back and tell me that they were seeing in their vision that there was energy domes that were placed above, I started having the memories that I was one of the guys that helped place those energy domes, which kept the energy in lock and sync to keep it from activating. And that was done with the Anunnaki, the Grey ETs, and several of the original Hopi shaman to have the duality experiment, to keep the vibration lowered and in check. And I had many different memories of of living in Hopi land, not only as a shaman, but even in some of my physical experiences and memories that went back to when I was newborn in this lifetime. And I kept on having these visions of falling off this cliff, and that was the Grand Canyon when I ended up finding where I was and where I lived. And Sunrise Point, I lived at Sunrise Point outside of Flagstaff in one incarnation. Well, anyway, I had to go back to Hopi land and be there to help uncreate what I'd created so long before, to break those energy domes. And then Denise LaFay, just after we had accomplished that, which was on September 22nd, 2011, and we did the Flower of Life dance in the medicine wheel at Titus Farm from sun up to sundown, never leaving the medicine wheel. And it was a semi-overcast day, and at the end of that ceremony, we looked up directly above the medicine wheel, and there was a blue cookie cutter cutout of exactly the same Flower of Life we'd been dancing around the medicine wheel before. And as we sat down to smoke pipe at the end of ceremony just after sunset, that vortex activated, and then it expanded, and within a couple of days it had expanded out to Menenkopi, to where we used to go get our water, out to Second Mesa, where Prophecy Rock is. And then by a month, when I was taking Roy Littleson to the airport for the 11-11-11 ceremonies, he was going down to Brazil or Argentina. I noticed that all the vortexes had activated all over Arizona. And yesterday, the vortexes here were inactive, but by the end of our ceremony, right here, we did, well, let's see if we can see this. I don't know if we can see this. We did 11 circles. This was a part of the 11-11 doorway activation in part of my vortex work that I've done everywhere, including at Titus Farm. And 11 divine masculine marches around where we would do ceremony in one particular direction, counterclockwise for the divine masculine, and then 11 circles clockwise for the divine feminine. And from that point, we did our invocations. We brought in all those, the elemental kingdoms, and we gathered from the directions. We brought in the ancients and the future selves and the ETs. And we did ceremony here. And then we placed the crystals. And then we said our prayers, and we smudged. And you can see our smudge sticks. I can't see diddly squat. See our smudge sticks there? Sandra, thank you for those. We smudged the whole time we were doing the divine masculine and divine feminine 11 circles each. 11 marches in the circle each. And then we placed and Tom Miller, the crystal that you gave me, pre-programmed to remove negative energies, is included right in the center of those. I've been carrying that for some time. It was waiting on this ceremony. Sandra had one programmed also. She didn't know about yours and you didn't know about hers, but they're both right here. And as we finished the ceremony yesterday, we realized that these crystals aren't in their permanent place. This is just to activate the land. I could feel the vortexes activating. We connected to the crystal beds that are in the aquifers below here. We connected to Mount Shasta. We connected to all the other crystal beds around the planet, all the other sacred sites around the planet. We connected to planetary chakras, to the consciousness grid, to the crystalline grid, to the light cities. We connected it to everything. And at the end of the ceremony, you could feel the shift. It was the most wild thing. It was just like what happened in Hopi Land back September 21st, 22nd, 2011. And as we completed the ceremony and we started walking off, very in touch and in tune with the energies, just as usually happens. I've spoken before how many times I see light ships, UFOs, just after we do something like that. Just like so many times I was leaving Flagstaff, and right as I was leaving Flagstaff, there was a light ship right above me. Well, right as we finished ceremony here, I looked up, and there was this jet, probably about 35,000 feet high, with its vapor trail behind, and you could see its wings, and it was going from the northeast to the southwest, and about half the distance between that jet and the ground was a cigar-shaped object with no wings, and it was going from southwest to northeast. And James and I watched it for some time until it disappeared. There were no wings, there was no vapor trail. The jet that was much higher, that had the vapor trail, you could hear the engines of, and the cigar-shaped object, which was nice side. It was as large as any jet. It had no sound. It had no vapor trail. It had no wings. And it was going that way. And that happens so many times when we do ceremony. This was not an actual light ship. This was a more metallic structure. All right, say bye to the crystals. We're walking back down to the front. The vortex is activated. It's all connected. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Patricia, Robles. It was wonderful doing ceremony with you at 12-12-12, and bringing in the Magdalene energies in Phoenix. Many people know about all my other water healing ceremonies. Well, we've connected to the water in the aquifers here, and then we created more of the waters, and James came and poured them into the lake down below. And it was interesting to watch James, because he's, you know, he's an old military special ops guy, kind of like several of my friends, and kind of realized that wasn't where he wanted to be. And even being a Creek Indian, he hadn't done too many ceremonies before. He'd never participated in the moving of energies. And yesterday I got to witness him feeling the memories coming through down here at the lake as the ceremonies began. And he was moving the energies. And there was an algae plume that was down here. In fact, even more interesting, well, not even more interesting, but a part of it, yesterday morning I woke up on January the 16th, and for the first time, the full 25-acre lake was frozen all the way across. It was cold in the witch's titty, but you know, yeah, I know a lot of witches that have warm titties. But I woke up yesterday morning to it being so cold that the lake was frozen all the way across, and by the afternoon, evening, it was blue skies, sunshiny, and warm as could be. And today it's as warm as it can be, like we've not had. In fact, I was listening to the radio yesterday as I was going into Memphis. I was listening to the University of Memphis Jazz channel, and they were talking about how this has been so unusual to have it so cold ever since I arrived here, and how finally yesterday it's the first time where people can get out and enjoy outside. It's been gloomy and I mean as cold as it could be. And yesterday morning, the whole lake was frozen over. Yesterday, when the ceremony started, the lake had actually thawed, but there's an algae plume right where the dam is that I'm walking down to right now. And that algae plume had been blown against the southwest side where the dam is by the winds, and James started working the energies and commanding out loud what he was doing, and he shifted that algae plume. Even with the winds, he moved them, and I sat there watching him do it. And just after I started ceremony, separate from him, but at the first of the entrance into the property, and I was clearing the energies from that point as I was walking into the hill that I'm just now leaving, that the first part of this video was showing. As I met him, I could hear him talking and commanding that algae plume to move, and moving it against the wind. And he did it. That's the first time that he had ever, even as a Native American, he had ever really focused using his spiritual abilities there. That was the most amazing thing to witness. I remember doing that as a kid, and a lot of people, you know, they get caught up in the matrix and they don't realize that we have full command and control of a lot of this stuff, as long as it's not affecting anybody else, as long as it's just the personal magic in our life and we hadn't got anybody else's vibration affecting our manifestations. Our manifestations really unfold pretty readily. But when it does interfere or have other persons that have thought and emotional placement into whatever the manifestation is, then we have lesser control over what unfolds. And anyway, when we're alone, there's much magic that unfolds. Anyway, there's the lake. Yesterday, that thing was frozen, not solid, but completely across the top, about an inch or two thick. And it's amazing to be here right now and to not have a coat on and to feel the warmth and to have it comfortable. Hey James, gotta come back out here. Your algae plume, it's back. It might be back, but it does listen. And you know, it's actually a good thing, because this algae plume is going to be excellent for aquaponics. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Well, something else that was very interesting, Sandra, about the water that PATRICIA, the healing waters that you sent, that was from PATRICIA. I'm gonna find some place to sit right here. It said in there, once we activate the water, to to let it sit uncapped for 6 hours, and then to put it in sunlight for 3 days. Interestingly enough, yesterday before the ceremonies began with us calling on the code inspector to get our permits and stuff for moving the shipping containers in here for our tool storage and setting up the larger fixed 3D printers, and also contacting the persons that are going to be delivering those boxes. And it was exactly 72 hours from then that they could even deliver the boxes. Wow, wow, wow. I find all the little nuances of the whole experience very magical. Doesn't matter whether it's the numerology of the 888, 24 years to the day that deja vu occurred, or 17 years to the day that my father had his operation that began his demise, or that even relates, how that relates to Turtle Island. It's when I look at everything, every bit of it, every fractal is so very magical. How can people not see the magic in their lives, in their existence, in their experience? It's just like that hawk. It's just like the UFO at the end of the ceremony. You know, there's magic everywhere. There's so much magic, it's just incredible. It is life. And somebody had messaged me to show them hands-on magic, and really, that's it. I mean, magic is every place we look. As long as we open our eyes, as long as we can see it, as long as we can feel it, as long as we're aware of it. It's just like that pelican that, as I was talking about the magic, the year of magic, in that January 1st, 2015 video, and the pelican comes through and he's like, well, you know, the white pelicans aren't talking to you, but I'm here and I live here. White pelicans are migratory, and he's wanting to be recognized, and he's given the magic. He's slapping the waters, I'm slapping the board on the pier, and he's talking back. That is the magic, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere we look. It occurs as signs. That if we see those signs and we accept it as confirmations, or as paths and directions to follow, or as you know, a pat on the back, as a lot of times it is. It's just like seeing the UFO after ceremonies. It's a pat on the back. That's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. It's 11:11 a.m. on 1/17/2015, and I'm looking down as I hear my computer make a little noise right there as the hard drive's working up, and I'm realizing I'm gonna be needing to go plug this thing in soon, and so I'll drop this video. This is enough for this video. I have no idea if I'm gonna upload it. It's like I said in the last video. Sometimes I make them, and then if I review them when I get into town and have the chance to upload, I don't necessarily upload it then because it's not relevant anymore. But anyway, Sandra, this video is for you and for Patricia and for Tom Miller and for James Brown and for me and anybody else who is concerned about the frequencies at the heart of Turtle Island, around the Memphis area, around Tennessee, lower Kentucky, around this area. But, we need to raise the frequencies even higher and ever higher here, and really activate those crystal beds below, just like we have so many other places on the planet. this place is very critical to the collective of humanity, to the heart of Turtle Island, to the planetary ascension. Even more so than the projects that we're doing here with the off-grid community. Anyway, love y'all. Bye for now.